Shalom, shalom, Israel. Um, it's good. It's good being back here. I know I haven't made a video in a long time. I've been really itching to get this message out that's inside of me. um, Today's topic is called David the Villain. The thing is that I wanted to share some of my opinions about David, which are not very popular, but I wanted to get it out there because I don't want people to be deceived when it starts. If it does become more acceptable and people start following, uh, the true path of David being the villain, so that there won't be any ulterior motives that anybody else has, and try to steer things in another direction, as far as like David not being real or something like that, some nonsense. Which is which doesn't have to be the case when you look at David as a villain. Okay. If anything, for now, I know that it's not acceptable. I would ask that you please hear the whole case. I would also ask that you please, meditate on it, consider it, and if you hear something about this later on, about this argument, just remember this video, remember the source. Okay? I think that there are other people who do see David as a villain, um, and their conclusions on that is that David is just not real at all and never existed. Um, but that's not how the law works. Anytime like groups like that, anytime they read the stories in the Tanakh, like Joshua or in the Book of Kings and Chronicles, anytime people are just not doing what the commandments say to do, they just assume that these people just didn't exist. And that's not, I just don't believe that that's the proper way to analyze the whole circumstance. You see, the first 5 books are the law, the Torah, we all know this. But they're rules, right? Basically. You wanna play any game or anything like that, you gotta know the rules to the game, right? If you don't know the rules to the game, you can't even play the game. So the best way to look at it, like how I always usually teach it, is that the Torah, you need to look at it as rules to the game of seeking the Most High. Okay, if that's the game, and learning the true path of our history and tradition, right? So obviously, our people, we're in captivity right now, and we're scattered all across the world, like how the prophecies say we're supposed to be, because our ancestors did not keep the commandments. So obviously, when we read the stories of our ancestors, they're not keeping the commandments to the T. Okay, and these type of things include David. It includes our hierarchies, our prophets, our priests. They weren't keeping the commandments. Now, some people will say, well, they're priests, they're kings, and our royalty, they were keeping the commandments really well. No, that's not true. Okay, even in the wilderness, if you're familiar with the story, when Moses went on the mountain for 40 days and 40 nights, Aaron, his brother, who was the high priest, was the one who led us astray he was leading the way as far as us worshiping a golden calf. So if Aaron, the high priest, would have us worshiping an idol, despite seeing all the wonders of the Most High, what makes you think that anybody after Aaron or any other high official wouldn't make those type of mistakes? And who knows? Maybe even Aaron knew not to do what he did, and maybe he just felt pressured by the people to give them what they wanted, which was a false idol. Maybe it was that type of circumstance. I mean, we really don't know, but that could be the case too. Because when our people are in power, they get a lot of pressure, pressure from like the ignorance of the congregation in a sense, right? There's probably pastors like that know they Israelites right now. Christian churches, they probably know the New Testament is false, or whatever the case may be, but they get their highest donations from people who actually believe in the false narrative. So they keep pushing the false narratives despite the fact of the truth. That can happen sometimes, right? So that's why I want to dig into the truth with this. That's very unpopular, but I just want to get through it. Okay, so the first issue I have with David being the villain is his conception, his lineage. Okay? And the Most High said in the Torah, Deuteronomy 23, verses 3 through 5 specifically, he says that Ammon and Moab shall never enter the congregation of Israel forever. He says this. Okay? Now, it's the Most High who makes this decision, this determination that Israel is to follow. Okay? Now, why bring that up? Well, David is descended from Ruth. In the book of Ruth, Ruth is a Moabite. Okay? Now, some people argue that Deuteronomy 23 is only about the men. Okay? It's not about the women of Moab, it's only about the men of Moab. That's not true either. Because we can go to Nehemiah chapter 13, verse 20 through 26, somewhere around there. And we can read also the book of Ezra, chapter 10. And we can see in these two chapters that our ancestors, our Israelite brothers, our Israelite men, ancestors, our Israelite fathers, ancestors, left their wives and children who were of Moab, who were of these other nations. And they knew, and they looked at it, their interracial relationship with Moab and Ammon and all these other nations that God has forbidden us to be with. They looked at that as wickedness and evil, and that they wanted to repent from it. And what they did was they left their women and children and went back to Israel to go marry Israelite women. Okay? Now this was Ezra in the book of Ezra and the book of Nehemiah are long after the time of David. Okay? So everything David did up until that point, as far as him being accepted as a Moabite or have Moabite blood in his genes, that's frivolous to the book of Nehemiah and inconsistent with Nehemiah and Ezra. Because had David been born, had that relationship with Ruth and Boaz took place during those times, I mean, Boaz would have left Ruth because that's what they were doing. And the child that Ruth would have had for Boaz, he would have left both Ruth and the child. If Boaz in the book of Ruth took place in the time of Nehemiah and Ezra. All right? I mean, these are like, there's some things in this law that are just irrefutable. Okay? And that's one of the cases there. Because that's exactly what they did. They left the women of Moab and the children that they had. Because they could never enter the congregation of Israel. They couldn't receive any inheritance. Now, if the Most High said that Moab and Ammon can never enter the congregation of Israel, to just be citizens at all, what makes you think that somebody with Moabite lineage can be a king of Israel? Think about that. The Most High says in Deuteronomy chapter 17 that our king must be one of our brethren. When you talk about somebody being one of our brethren, that means that they got to have a pure bloodline. We don't want a king that has some Moabite blood in it. We don't want a king that has some other race inside of them. You know why? Because if we have a king that has another nation in their DNA, they're probably going to be a little bit more lenient towards that nation. If that nation were to attack Israel, why would we want somebody who would jeopardize our women and children, our community? That doesn't make sense. So the Most High was very intelligent in telling us, and ahead of his time, of course, telling us to have a king who is amongst our brothers. This is all Deuteronomy chapter 17. Okay? The other issue I have with David, it's not even with David himself. It's with Samuel. Samuel, if you read his story, he had some sons that were not keeping the Most High's commandments or the integrity of his name, Samuel, right? So our ancestors went to Samuel and said, "Hey, Samuel, we realize that your sons are wicked. They're nothing like you. Can you please appoint a king over us? Because you're old, and you're the high priest, but you're old. You're a good man. We need somebody who's going to lead us in the right direction, be a king. Now, Samuel seemed offended at this. If you read his reaction to the whole thing, he's upset that Israel wants a king, which was nothing that the Most High said. The Most High did not say that this was a problem in Deuteronomy. In the Torah, he says it's okay for us to have a king. But here comes Samuel giving it like a whole breakdown of how this is about to be a bad idea. Okay? I have an issue with that too, because it's more like retaliation building up. Okay? He's mad that his sons, that the community doesn't want to accept his sons in authority. So he seems to be upset about this and wants to like make us pay for it in a sense. So what does he do? He appoints the first king that he appoints is King Saul, right? Of the tribe of Benjamin. There's political issues behind that choice as well. You see, in the book of Judges, the tribe of Benjamin basically went at war with the entire nation of Israel. Okay, we had a civil war in the book of Judges, and make a long story short, the tribe of Benjamin is looked at very unfavorably amongst all the rest of the tribes in Israel because of the civil war. Because of the civil war, all of the women and children of the tribe of Benjamin were utterly destroyed. There were no women and children of the house of Benjamin. So what they had to do was they had to go to Shiloh and find the indigenous people of Shiloh and have them marry, have the people of Benjamin, or the men of Benjamin, take the women of Shiloh and marry them. Now these women of Shiloh are not Israelites. They would have been more so like conquered people who were indigenous to the land at the time of Canaan, right? Of the sons and daughters of Ham, in a sense. So Benjamin is a mixed tribe because of this, which evidently should have disqualified the house of Benjamin, or the tribe of Benjamin, from really being a king of Israel, if you pay attention to that. Because we need somebody with Israelite blood, both mother and father, to be a king of Israel, to be a ruler. So they won't betray us. Okay? So basically, since Samuel goes to the least favorable tribe in Israel, and he selects one of them to be the first king of Israel. Now, Saul, despite the narrative, was not really a bad king. You know, he did some things that were questionable, but if you pay attention to how the story outlines, it's like some of this stuff seems like it could have been filled in for Saul to basically damage his image, where it may not have been true. I'll give you an example. Saul was at a war, I think it was with the Amalekites, and before he was going to go to battle, he was waiting for Samuel to come make a sacrifice offering on the military's behalf. However, Samuel delayed coming for whatever reason. He delayed. That almost sounded a little intentional, because it seems as though Samuel wanted to have someone be a puppet for him that was going to basically do everything he wanted him to do anyway, despite that Samuel's not the king himself. He wanted a king that was just going to do whatever he wanted him to do. You know, these type of things happen politically, so you know. And I mean, we can't expect it to be no different here. So basically, long story short, Samuel is offended that Saul couldn't wait for him to make some sacrifice offering before he went to go fight, because Samuel taking on a date, and I have reason to suspect that it's intentional for his delay, so that Saul could fall to the trap that Samuel set for him to make this sacrifice without him. and then go ahead and defeat the Amalekites. And then when he defeats the Amalekites, he takes the king captive, and he takes some of the spoils, and he divides it amongst his troops. But then Samuel comes, and then Samuel appears out of nowhere, whatever. He's upset with King Saul that he let the Amalekite king live, and he's also upset that he has taken in the spoil of the Amalekites and divided it amongst his troops. And you gotta understand, like, I mean, his troops are tired. You know what I'm saying? Like, they gotta eat. They're risking their lives here. They need to be compensated. They need to be paid. Why should it come out of the king's purse? You know, in a sense. But Samuel was placed him to do all this and listen to him. But apparently, it more so appears that Samuel was upset that Saul moved before he came and did his little position that he wanted to do, or whatever the case was. So he's mad at Saul, and he basically curses him. Now, I'm not saying that basically Saul should be able to do whatever he wants, despite the priest's orders or whatever the case is, and him disobeying the priest was the right thing to do in a sense. I'm not saying that. Okay. What I want to say is that Saul, he made mistakes, a few mistakes, and he was not treated with mercy, kindness, and compassion, the undying mercy that David received. David did far worse than what Saul did. When you read the whole book of Kings, you don't read about Saul dishonoring his family. You don't read about Saul getting sleeping with other men's wives. You don't see that. You don't see Saul killing innocent brothers so he can take their wives. You don't read that. Saul was faithful to his wife. And I'm not one to advocate for monogamy at all, but Saul was an honorable, monogamous man. He wasn't like messing around with. He wasn't dishonoring his marriage. And why is that a big deal? Well, you gotta think here, people. If you are a man who will dishonor the people that you love most and are closest to you, what makes you think that you wouldn't do that or worse to the community? If you know what I'm saying, if you're cheating on your own family. If you're cheating your family, you're definitely going to cheat the people. How is that not self-effort? And you got to look, and when we look at David in his house, he's lying. He's murdering innocent people. He's cheating on his wives. Again and again. He's cheating not only his wives, but he cheated the whole community. Because he made Uriah's death look like an accident when he took Bathsheba. He ain't waste no time to get her pregnant again, right? That was wicked. He lied to the people. And he let some people know what was going on. And the people he let know what was going on, like Joab, his right-hand man, he had him killed when he died. Joab really knew what was going on. But David made sure he died when he died. That wasn't fair. That wasn't righteous. That wasn't correct. See, David did a lot of things in his house. David's relationship with Jonathan is questionable. It says that when Jonathan died, he said that Jonathan gave him better love than a woman or something like that. What kind of mess is that? What kind of love could a man give another man that's more than a woman? That's ridiculous. That's that Moab stuff. Okay? And Jonathan has some of that shot that, that Canaanite blood in him, and then David got some of that Moabite blood in him. So, there's a chance they did funny stuff. You know what I'm saying? Because that's their culture, that's their people. Moab. They're not full blood Israelites. Either one of them were. So what does David do? David builds this relationship. It seems more so that Jonathan may have been the one who was more into David or something like that, or whatever the case was. It was just weird. Jonathan takes off his clothes or whatever in front of David, makes some type of covenant with him. And it's just weird to just imagine a man who has more honor and respect for a random man over his own father, who's the king of Israel. Now, David and Saul had their issues, right? The thing is that the narrative, the way the direction of the narrative goes, it starts saying like, David was so honorable. He was avoiding King Saul. King Saul was trying to trap him, was trying to kill him, and all this other nonsense, right? You got to think, people. Saul is the king of Israel. He has a warrant out for David's arrest and capture, right? Instead of David being a man and turning himself in to the king of Israel, okay? The king of Israel. He runs. He makes himself a fugitive. He makes himself an outlaw to justice. To the king of Israel. Okay? There's nothing glorified about that. You have to see this for what it was. He's an outlaw. And what does he end up doing? He ends up making leagues with Moab, enemy of Israel, the Philistines, enemies of Israel, right? How is he making leagues with two enemies of Israel? Don't you know law? Don't you know that that's treason against your people to do stuff like that? David is a military commander, okay? He knows Israelite defenses. You understand? He knows our weaknesses, and he's over there making leagues and making friends with Moab. He trusted Moab so much that he sent his family over there to them. You understand? When King Saul was pursuing him and looking for him, David took his whole family and they went to Moab. They don't say nothing about them coming back either. So he had a relationship with Moab still. The forbidden people that the Most High said can never enter the congregation. These are your enemies, Israel. Right? That's what the scriptures say. They can't never come in because they met your ancestors not with bread and water. They tried to curse your ancestors. That's why the Most High said they can never come in. So the Most High say a people can never come into Israel. That means you can't make no league with these people. That means that these people can never be your friend. He said, the Most High said forever. The Most High means forever when he says forever. Okay, so he makes a league with the Moabites. He trusts them with his family, his most, people he loves most, right? So what else happens? He's an outlaw from justice. David ends up going to some priest, right? And eating some of the bread from the priest, feeding his army or whatever, which was also a violation of the Torah. The priest ended up backing him up and supporting David, and David runs off. Now the thing is, David is a military commander. He should know that Saul is following him. Saul can track him. Saul is able to track the fireplaces where they made fires at, the tree branches, the manure that's left over from the horses they got. Like, he's able to trace David. The thing is that if David was a hero and was honorable, he wouldn't have left this priest by himself, knowing that Saul is coming for justice, okay, to capture David. So evidently, yes, what ends up happening is the priest ends up being executed for giving aid to David, who has already made a league and was providing aid and comfort, which is the definition of treason, to the enemies of Israel. So if you're committing treason against your nation of people, you're supposed to be executed. In any country you go to, you're going to be executed for treason. Even in countries that don't even believe in execution, they execute for treason. So what Saul did to that priest was no different, because the priest gave aid and comfort to David, who was already giving aid and comfort to and seeking aid and cover from the enemies of Israel. He made himself an outlaw just he was running away. If somebody ran away from the police right now, it would look like they're a criminal, right? This is no different from what David's doing in the story. If the Most High was with David, like he wouldn't have been running away, because the scripture says time and time again, that's what the wicked do. The wicked are the ones who flee. David wouldn't have been fleeing if he had the truth on his side. He would have been able to face trial for his people, in front of his people, if he was doing what he was doing was right. The Most High would have helped him in his trial. That's what y'all don't understand, and that's what y'all don't see. Y'all say, well, King Saul would have killed him. King Saul wouldn't have no power to end David's life if the Most High was with him. And it would have been honorable if had David turned himself in. But that's not what happened. David kept running. Right? So eventually, David teams up with the Philistines, enemies of Israel. And they're so comfortable, a lot of them were so comfortable with David that they was ready to have David fight with them against King Saul. Now, what ends up happening after that, right, after, well, at the end, they decide that David is not going to do this, that it's not a good idea or a good look for him to, execute his own people or whatever, right, or fight his own people. So they dismiss him. But the thing is what's not said is that, again, David is a military commander, right? He knows the intelligences of the defenses of Israel. After David makes this league with the Philistines, at the end, the Philistines finally defeat King Saul. So they had information to defeat King Saul and kill him and Jonathan. That's not a coincidence. That's not a coincidence. Okay? Again, David is a military commander. He knows military tactics. He knows the defenses of Israel. He was able to give that information to the Philistines so that they could defeat Saul. And what ends up happening? You got to pay attention to who gains. When Saul dies, Saul has sons that could reign and be kings of Israel. He had another son named Ishbosheth or something like that. That could have been the next king of Israel, who's supposed to be the next king. But instead, David assumes the throne of Israel. This is all strategic maneuver, right? Then there's a whole narrative talking about every once in a while in the story of how when David and Saul were alone, Saul admitted that David is supposed to be the real king of Israel. Or when Jonathan and David are alone, Jonathan admits that David's supposed to be the real king of Israel. That's so bogus, man. You know what they say in the court of law? They call things like that a hearsay testimony. According to the Torah, you're supposed to have 2 or more witnesses to establish any matter. So if we only have David in these one-on-one conversations with Saul saying that he's supposed to be the king of Israel, that's all baloney. Because that's, according to Torah, that don't add up because you ain't got 2 witnesses here, bro. Same thing with Jonathan saying the same thing to David when they have their little one-on-one conversation. There's no 2 witnesses here saying that that's actually what Jonathan said. If Jonathan was on your side, like the narrative says so much, and God was on your side, well, why wouldn't Jonathan survive? If Jonathan honored you more than his father, why didn't Jonathan go with you to Moab and to the Philistines like how you did? Things don't. This ain't adding up. Okay. Another thing. So after, David ends up becoming the king, he also, what does he do? He ends up having some kids. There's a dispute between Ishbosheth and David, amongst in the community of who's supposed to be the next king. It was Saul's right-hand man, I forgot his name, that he was trying to get, some of Saul's other son to be the next ruler, which is the right way to do things, instead of David, because that's how things worked out for David, huh? His sons was the one reigning after him, right? So power struggle begins. Now when Ishbosheth, I think that was his name, Mishbosheth, I forgot his name, one of them. He when he starts trying to be a king and do things his way, he starts getting into it with Saul's right hand man. And Saul's right hand man says, "Well, if you ain't gonna do what I say, then I'm gonna go with David." And so they have some type of power issue, and I think it was over a woman. So he ends up going to David and saying, "Hey, David, I was wrong. You know, you need to be the next king. Blase, please. This other nigga don't know what you're talking about in this sense, right?" Which was a dumb move. So, but it ends up costing that dude's life. You know, David, he executes everyone who was, according to the story, everybody who was threatening his throne or had the power to do so was executed. Every one of them. Anyone who ever threatened his throne was executed. They were killed. Okay. Now, what does David do? After that, he ends up meeting Abigail. Abigail is another wicked ass woman that's promoted as righteous. What did Abigail do? Right? Abigail, well, I forgot to mention it, but Abigail meets David when she's already married to another dude named Nahab or something. Nadab. I don't even believe that Nadab was his real name because, the name Nadab had a negative thing about it, and it's just ridiculous that his mama named him some name like that. That's whatever. But Nadab is the name according to the story. Abigail, like David and his army comes and meets them and is upset because Nadab doesn't want to feed David's men, and he don't even know who David is, right? The narrative makes it seem like it was wrong that Nahab felt this way about David, but 9 times out of 10, any of us, if we don't know who you are and you just come up and show up on our property demanding us to feed you, and we don't even know who you are, and plus on top of that, you just had a priest got killed over giving aid to you because you be teaming up with the enemy type of stuff. You know what I'm saying? Like, it don't make no sense how he was looked at negatively for saying no to feeding David. Because the last person who fed him ended up getting killed. Because David's over here an outlaw. And, he got his gang with him, and they demanding you to feed them. You don't even know who they are. And what's interesting too is that Nadab didn't even know who David was, but Nadab comes from the lineage of Judah. If you look it up, he comes from the line of Caleb. Caleb is mentioned in the Torah as an honorable line, as an honorable lineage. And Nadab is descended from that. So Caleb is a house that is keeping the Most High's commandments and is wealthy. So Nadab was a very wealthy man at this time. Had a whole bunch of land, cattle, a whole bunch of stuff. Right? Now he's from the tribe of Judah. Right? Abigail is married to him. Should be very happy to be married to this man who's mentioned in the Torah. Right? So the thing is, what I don't like about Abigail is that she didn't, instead of giving comfort to her husband and trusting in her husband and his honor, protecting her house, she goes outside of him, goes around her husband, and goes meets David and his army, right? And basically, undermines her husband. That's not the way we want Israelite women to be, bro. She should have been comforting her husband, not the threat of her house and her livelihood. What kind of mess is that? That's backwards in the mud. Nadab was defeated because of that. Every time I look at that, that's what I see. And then all of a sudden, somehow randomly Nadab just dies at some type of banquet or something. Which I got reason to suspect that why would Abigail probably poison him, because she ends up going ahead and marries David, or gets married to David right after her husband dies. Like shortly after, she didn't even grieve her husband's death. The thing is, in Israel, when you have like a widow like that, according to like Numbers chapter 36, when a woman has, her husband's possessions and everything like that, like because of the death, and she's a widow, or she's the only daughter, or she's the only child, and she's a daughter to her husband, her father, or whatever. Everything that belongs to her is given to her husband now. It's her husband's possession. So everything that Abigail had once she married David, that became David's possession. So now he has a possession of Caleb tied to him through Abigail. So this was all a political move for him to get married to Abigail. You understand? So y'all don't even see all of that. That gave him a lot of favor. It also mentions how he did some things like he conquered a small village of people or something like that, and he ended up taking the spoil and giving it to the elders of Judah, so that he can win favor with the elders of Judah when he tried to say that he was the new king of Israel, so that the house of Judah would back him up through the elders, because they're getting money, right? They're getting possessions and gifts from David, so that they can pick him to be the next king of Israel. This was all a political game. It's like people just overlook this type of thing. So what ends up happening with David? Another thing that was very wicked with the house of David is that he tries to promote this idea that the Most High wants him to build some temple in Jerusalem. This is a big issue. Why is it a big issue? The Most High says again and again and again in the Torah, he says, bring your offering to the door of the tabernacle. You understand? Tabernacle. 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 Over and over and over and over again. In the law. Tabernacle. Tabernacle. Nothing there says bring your offerings to the temple. Nothing in the Torah says that. But somehow David has some vision from some God that told him to build some temple in Jerusalem. And where did the Most High say, where did the Most High direct us to build the tabernacle or to place the tabernacle? The Most High directed us to place the tabernacle in Shiloh. Shiloh is in the territory of Ephraim, right? And Ephraim, that territory of Ephraim, was the place where our ancestors, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, built the most altars. They built like 6 or 7 altars in that area. You understand? In the area of Ephraim's territory. Okay? So this is a sacred place. Shiloh was a very sacred place. And according to the law, if the tabernacle was built in Shiloh, that means that our ancestors had to meet there 3 times in a year. Okay? Not Jerusalem. So he didn't have the authority to move the temple or from Shiloh to Jerusalem. That was so out of the pocket. Nobody mentions this stuff. And you gotta think, why would he want to change that? It's because he wasn't accepted in Shiloh. If you're not accepted in some place, you go and you create a new place. That's what people do. That's what David did. David and Solomon. You see, David and Solomon had that Moab blood in them. The Most High said that they could never enter the congregation of Israel. So what makes you think that they can go to the door of the tabernacle and give offerings? You guys always say David don't like offerings. Well, there's a reason why he wouldn't like offerings and sacrifices. You know why? Because he couldn't bring them to the door of the tabernacle of the congregation when he can't enter the congregation, according to the law. Put this together the right way. So now he builds a new place in Jerusalem, and it's okay for him to go there because he's not a part of the congregation when he goes to this other place in Jerusalem where he's building, him and Solomon, his son. They end up building some altar. The altar's too small for the offerings because it's not according to the commandments. It's mentioned in there when we read it. He's talking about, then Solomon comes up with some prayer that you can pray to this place and it'll be heard and accepted in this place. But the place that he's telling you to pray to is not the place where the Most High placed the tabernacle? Did the Most High say to pray to some temple, or did he say to pray towards the tabernacle? You understand? The Most High says tabernacle over and over and over again, and we so stiff-necked, we looking at some damn temple. Temples and tabernacles are not the same thing. They're not synonymous. Okay. So what else is happening? So the house of David, after Solomon appoints Rehoboam to be his successor, right? So what's the issue with this? Rehoboam's mother is an Ammonite. If you look this up, it's 1 Kings chapter 12. I forgot what verse, but it's in 1 Kings chapter 12. Rehoboam's mother is an Ammonite. So what's the problem there with that? Well, after King Solomon, the house of David possesses both Moab lineage and Ammonite lineage. And the Most High said that Ammon and Moab are forbidden from joining the congregation of Israel forever. He says this directly. But then we end up accepting the house of David as our king. This is ridiculous. And the house of David has both Ammon and Moab blood in their DNA. And the Most High said they can never do that. They can't join our congregation. If they can't join our congregation, how are they ever going to be the king of Israel? How is that ever going to be the king house of Israel, bro? It don't work like that. We disobeyed the Most High by allowing that to happen. And this house has literally been an instrument in our destruction of the covenant. And we just keep accepting it. So then when you get to the book of Jeremiah, what happens? Jeremiah 22:30, Jeremiah 36:30. The Most High says, look, the house of David, he told one of the sons of David, hey, this, you and your descendants will never sit on this throne ever again. Talking to the house of David, he says this. So the thing is, what's weird, it's like, no, it's true that nobody from the house of David ever reigns or sits on the throne in Israel ever again, right? It still hasn't happened. So that was a very true prophecy. But the thing is, when you get to the book of, if you start reading books like Apocrypha, right, you notice that the house of David doesn't declare themselves as kings anymore, but they're governors now, which is weird. But it's like, it still fulfills the prophecy that they'll never be kings. They end up being governors of Israel and all this nonsense, right? I also am convinced that some of the Psalms that are accredited to David do not, in fact, truly belong to him. Like, I believe that, for example, this, Psalms 5. The thing is that, I think in Psalms 5, for example, it mentions, I think it's Psalms 5, I'm just guessing. But in Psalms 5, it says something about the temple, right? This is a Psalm of David, but it talks about a temple. It mentions the temple. The thing is that the temple wasn't made during the time of David. The temple was made during the time of Solomon, after David's death. So there wasn't even a temple. So how can we assume? How can the song be associated with David when it speaks about the temple, the holy temple, and the temple wasn't built during David's time? Like, it just don't add up. It's like they just keep. It's like there was a lot of work done to give credibility to David. There's a lot of false narratives saying God is on his side, God is with him. How is the Most High going to be with somebody he said can never enter his congregation forever? He's not going to be with that. And see, enough of us have not studied the Torah enough to really see these type of things. We just kind of go with the flow. And you got to understand, Moses had already explained these things. He said in Deuteronomy 31, verse 29, and, it's 28 and 30. Could be around there, 27 to 29. Yep. So Deuteronomy 31, verses 27 to 29. Moses says before his death that he knew that we were going to provoke the Most High to anger, He knew that we were going to make mistakes, and this was not limited to the lower class. This is the whole house, like our kings, our queen, our our priests, our doctors, our lawyers, whatever the case, our judges. They were all going to be corrupt. They were all going to provoke the Most High to anger through their ignorances, okay, through their evil ways, not obeying His laws, not listening to His laws. So, as far as like what we did, as far as us electing this guy to be our king, we made a huge mistake with that. He should have never been our king. Now, who's supposed to be our king? According to how things kind of went, right? The more probable person or tribe to be the king of Israel is the tribe of Ephraim, somebody from the house of Joseph. That's more plausible, especially over somebody from Judah and all the other tribes. Okay. Now, why is Joseph more plausible? Because Joseph comes from humble beginnings. Joseph did not sell his brothers into slavery. Joseph does not have that debt of sin over him. And his sons are descended from him. He was the one who is the regent of our nation. He was the one who was given a higher position. He was the one who was exalted. He was the one who was humble, who looked out for his brothers, and after they betrayed him. He had the power to destroy every one of us. So every tribe is in debt to the house of Joseph. And what's weird and funny is like when you're reading about the house of David and all the issues that they're having with the house of Joseph and Ephraim and the Northern Kingdom and stuff like that, and the Book of Kings and Chronicles or whatever the case is, right? They make them look so evil, when in fact they may not have been the evil ones, which is really ironic. They had temples. They had the temple. They had the altars built in their territory, and it's like they're called evil, but it's like these are the altars that Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob built. So how is it evil that they are worshiping these altars? Like they're calling good evil and evil good, basically, in a sense. They try to discredit what they were doing in the Northern Kingdom at the time. Now, yeah, the narrative says, they built a new altar. They had new holy days. Like, well, the thing is, it's like, if that may not have been the case. It could have been the case, but that may not have been the case. They may have been trying to restore things that the house of David kind of was messing up. That's what like could have been happening. They might say, hey, they was trying to build a golden calf and all this stuff, but that might not be plausible. Because there was a story in there, I believe Jeroboam, one of his son, somebody had got sick or something like that, and he asked his wife to go to Shiloh and basically talk to a priest there. You gotta understand, like, this must be the location of where the tabernacle is. Okay? The priests were very heavily in that area, in the tabernacle. The tabernacle possessed the Holy of Holies, which was the Ark of the Covenant. Okay? So this is a holy place. This is a sacred place. He asked his wife to go there. See, if Jerusalem was the place to go, why wouldn't he tell his wife to go to Jerusalem? Why wouldn't he tell, like, if they had the high priest there, like it says in the narrative, why wouldn't he tell his wife to go there if it's going to heal his son? So he didn't tell her to go there. He told her to go to Shiloh, the sacred land, and asked the priest there about the condition of his son. The priest there said, hey, your wife returns to the city, your son will die, whatever the case is, right? The thing is that when that happened, that's exactly what took place, And the Most High says in the Torah, like, that's what happens when His true servants and prophets say something that it's going to follow. Like, things are going to happen right after that to prove that it's the Most High. Right? Now, David had like instruments that were to amplify these things. He had all the instruments. He got in possession of it. Him being a military commander, he would know to do that. But that land, that sacred land of Shiloh, the tabernacle, he dismissed those things, and that says a lot. Those, like the Ark of the Covenant, the tabernacle, the offerings and sacrifices, Those are all supposed to be interchangeable. They're supposed to be together. Okay. So I think that's what I'm gonna say for now about this David. David was a villain, and this whole house is with Ammon and Moab blood in it. Most High said they can never enter the congregation of Israel. The Most High dismissed David's house in Jeremiah 22:30. The last king of David's throne was Zechariah, or not Zechariah, something like that, Zekiah or something like that. And the Most High killed all his sons and took his eyes out. Had the king of Babylon do those things too. So again, the house of David is villain, not hero. We are in captivity today because of his villainous ways. The fact that he committed adultery, and I mean, the narrative doesn't even call him an adulterer, him or Bathsheba. That's how heavy this narrative is. Like, he clearly violated the Torah when he slept with Bathsheba. There's no getting around it.